The music began that winter sometime after midnight, and no one could say at first where it came from. It was a piano, played softly, so softly that on a windy night you might not catch it all, a slow and gentle music that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, drifting out over the sleeping square and along the quiet snowbound streets in the small hours when the town was meant to be wholly asleep. The first to hear it thought they had dreamed it. But it came again the next night, and the next, always well after midnight. Always soft, always the same gentle, unhurried kind of music. And soon enough, half the town had heard it at one time or another, lying awake in the dark, and did not know what to make of it. It was not a frightening thing. That was the strange part. A mysterious music in the dead of night ought, by rights, to have unsettled people, but this did not. It was too gentle, too warm, too plainly kind. People who heard it found, more often than not, that it eased them, that they lay and listened to it in the dark and were comforted by it, and drifted off to sleep on it, and woke unsure whether it had been real. But it was real, and the question of where it came from, and who was playing, hung pleasantly over the town all that winter, a small and gentle mystery that no one was in any hurry to spoil. The one who finally set out to solve it was a girl named Pia, who was 9 years old and did not sleep well and had a great deal of curiosity. She had heard the music many nights now from her bed by the window and had lain listening to it and had decided, in the way of a determined child, that she simply had to know. So one clear, cold night, when the music began, she got up and dressed warm and quiet and slipped out of the sleeping house and went out into the moonlit square to find it. The music was easier to follow out of doors. She stood in the middle of the white and silent square and turned about slowly, listening, and it led her, note by soft note, across the snow, toward the old stone town hall that stood at the head of the square, dark and shut up for the night, as it always was, save for one window, high up, in which there burned the faintest dim and yellow light. The music was coming from there. Pia crossed the square to the great locked doors of the town hall and found them locked, as she had known they would be. But she went round the side, quiet as a cat in the snow, and found a smaller door, the caretaker's door, and it was not quite closed. And through the gap of it the music came out warm and clear into the cold night, and Pia, holding her breath, slipped inside. Inside, the town hall was dark and vast and echoing, and Pia crept through it toward the music, through the shadowed entrance hall and up a wide old staircase, following the sound to the great meeting room at the top, where the town held its gatherings, and where, against the far wall, stood an old upright piano that Pia had seen 100 times by day and never once thought about. It was lit now by a single small lamp, and seated at it, his back to her, playing softly in the pool of yellow light, was a man she knew. It was Mr. Halloran, the caretaker of the town hall, an old and quiet man who had swept its floors and tended its stoves and locked its doors for as long as Pia could remember. A man so shy and so silent that she had heard his voice perhaps twice in her life. She had never known he could play. No one had. And yet here he was, in the dead of night, in the empty hall, playing the piano with his eyes closed and his whole self bent to it, so lost in the music that he had not heard the child come in. And Pia, watching from the doorway, understood at once, with a child's quick and certain intuition, the shape of the whole thing. That this shy old man, who could not bring himself to say 10 words to a neighbor in daylight, came here in the secret dark, when he was sure that no one in the world was listening, and let out, through the piano, all the warmth and feeling that he could never once, in all his life, find a way to say aloud. She did not disturb him. She was a thoughtful child for all her curiosity, and she understood, without being told, that she had stumbled onto something private and precious, and that to make herself known, to have the old man turn and see her and stop, mortified, would be a kind of cruelty. So she stayed very still in the shadow of the doorway, and listened and watched the old caretaker play. And it was beautiful. She had not the words for how beautiful. She only knew that the music did to her, up close, what it had done to the whole town from afar, that it reached into her and warmed her and made her feel, somehow, less alone in the great dark night. When at last he finished and sat a moment with his hands still on the keys, and then quietly closed the lid, Pia slipped away before he could turn, back down the stairs and out through the caretaker's door and across the moonlit square to her home. And she carried the secret home with her and lay awake a long time turning it over and did not, at first, know what she meant to do with it. For she saw, at once, the trouble with it. The old man played only because he believed that no one heard. That was the whole heart of it. That was what let him do it. If she were to tell the town, plainly, that it was Mr. Halloran the caretaker who played the piano in the night, then everyone would know, and he would know that everyone knew, and he would be so ashamed, so exposed, that he would surely never play again. The secret was the thing that made the music possible, and yet it seemed to Pia a great pity, a real wrong, almost that a man could make a thing so beautiful, a thing that eased the sleep of the whole town, and never be thanked for it, never know how much it was loved, believed to his dying day that it fell on no ears at all. She wanted him to know he was heard, but she could not simply tell him, for that would end it. She thought about this for several days, with the seriousness of a child working at a real problem, and in the end she found her way to an answer that was gentler and cleverer than a grown-up might have managed. An answer that let the old man keep his secret and yet learn that he was loved. What she did was this. She began to leave him small things. Not signed, not explained. The first was a note left on the closed lid of the piano where he would find it when next he came to play, a note in a child's careful hand that said only, "Thank you for the music. Please don't stop." She did not say who she was. She only wanted him to know that someone, somewhere, had heard and was glad. And then, having started, she could not stop, and neither, it turned out, could the town, for Pia had told a few others, carefully sworn to secrecy. Not who the player was, but only that the night music had a keeper who must not be frightened off, and asked them to help her let him know he was heard without ever letting him know he was known. And the town, which is to say the best of it, took up the gentle game. Small things began to appear on the piano, left in the daytime for the old man to find in the night. A sprig of winter greenery in a little jar. A folded note from another hand. "We hear you, and it helps us sleep." A tin of good tea. A single candle. Never a name. Never a word said to his face. Only a growing, quiet chorus of small, anonymous kindnesses, gathering on the lid of the old piano, that said, over and over, in every way but the one that would have shamed him, "You are not playing to an empty room. We are here. We are listening. Thank you." Pia went back, once late to see. She crept again through the dark town hall and up the stairs and watched from the shadow of the doorway. And she saw the old man come to the piano and find that night's small offering, a note and a little cake someone had left. And she saw him stand there a long moment, holding them in his weathered hands, turning them over, understanding slowly what they meant. And she saw his face in the lamplight go from bewilderment to wonder to something that broke and mended at once. And she saw the old shy caretaker, who had played all those nights believing himself utterly alone and unheard, understand at last that the whole town had been listening all along and had loved it, and had found this gentle way to tell him so, without ever making him stand up and be seen. He wept a little, standing there, and then he sat down at the piano and wiped his eyes and opened the lid and began to play. And Pia thought that she had never heard him play so beautifully, for now there was something new in it, something that had not been there before. The sound of a man who knows at last that he is heard and plays not into an empty dark, but to friends he cannot see and need not face. She slipped away home, satisfied, and left him to it. The music went on all that winter, and the winters after, and the town never did, in any open way, solve its gentle mystery. If you had asked by day who played the piano in the town hall at night, most would have smiled and shrugged and said they were sure they didn't know, and would have meant it in a way, for there's a kind of knowing that a good town agrees, quietly, not to say aloud. The old caretaker swept the floors and tended the stoves and locked the doors and said his 2 words a year, and no one ever once let on. But the small gifts kept appearing on the piano from this hand and that, all through the cold months, and the music kept drifting out over the square after midnight, soft and warm and kind, easing the sleep of the whole town, and both the town and the old man who played understood, without a single word ever passing between them, the thing that a child had found the way to say, that he was heard, and that the hearing was a gift, and that some of the most beautiful things in the world are the ones we make in the dark, believing no one is listening, when all the while quietly the whole town is. Wherever you happen to be tonight, and whatever quiet task is keeping your hands busy, thank you for spending this little while here with us. Rest easy, and whenever you are ready, there will always be another story waiting.